Yeah, it says live on Facebook.
We are live on Facebook. It says we're live on Facebook.
We are live on Facebook. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all who are watching, whether you're watching live or whether you are watching on the hashtag replay. Please remember to give us a hashtag replay. And if you're watching live, let us know that you're there. So I'm going to do a little bit of a technical thing because Facebook, dear Facebook, you keep changing the game on us out here in these internet streets. So I just have to do something so that I can ping this into the group. However, no, I want to put us in the group first. I was going to get you to introduce yourself, but I want us to do it in the group. So if you just give me a moment. In fact, you can say, Sarah, can you just let people know who you are and where you're watching from, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about what you do.
Okay, yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Sarah Parks and I am tuning in tonight from Edinburgh in Scotland in the UK. So that's where I'm based and I live here with my husband and my two children who are 11 and 7. So yeah. So I'm a mom and a business owner and yeah, that's what I do. What about you, Ebboni?
So I'm tuning in from Grenada. I'm Canadian, but I'm here in Grenada right now. I am a mother of 4. I have a 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old. And yeah, that's me. Excited to chat with you guys.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so we are in the house now. Leanne is also watching. She says, good evening. Good evening, Leanne. How?
Hello, gorgeous.
Much, much love. Okay, so I believe that we're in the group. If we're not in the group, Leanne, could you post us in the group if we're not? But I think we are in the group, so we're just going to roll with it. So welcome to Friday Night Live, where I have my lovely guests who are also members of Purpose is Everything Facebook group. And we're just going to chop it up and chew it up. So today's or tonight's topic is debunking the myth of the superwoman and still having it all with grace and with ease. So when I'm talking about, I've called it a myth of the superwoman. Maybe my guests might think it's something else. So do you believe that there's actually a superwoman myth, or is it just something that I made up in my bedroom?
Well, there is a superwoman myth, definitely. You know, there's Wonder Woman, there's, I don't know, there's some others, isn't there? But they don't get as much publicity as the male superheroes, right?
Right. This is true. This is true.
You know, last night I got invited, which was such a luxury because we've been in lockdown here in the UK, and I got invited to a book launch with just a few women. So it was all within the guidelines. We were outside, we were around a fire, and it was so lovely. And there was a lady there who has a business that is a play on Wonder Woman. It's not Wonder Woman, but it's because she goes out in the woods with women, right? So it's Wonder Women, right?
No.
But she can't trademark that name because DC Comics will not have contested it. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's hard to be a Wonder Woman, you know, a superhero, when there's a monopoly on even the names, huh? When it isn't even the same name.
I used to have an alter ego called I didn't make it up, but Wonder Woman, but it was ONE.
Yeah, I bet you wouldn't be able to trademark that for sure. Way too close, huh?
Right. So, yeah, Ebboni, what came to mind when I threw that topic your way?
I think of it more as like the idea, the archetype of like being like a strong Black woman, like the expectation that you're just like holding it all together all of the time and everything's just smoothly, whether you're falling apart or not, everything's together. And that's like the myth or like the archetype, because really and truly that's like not real, that's not reality, that's not real life, right?
Right, yeah, I'm with you. So yeah, so it was all of that, because the idea of being a superwoman and a superhero, and big up as well, I can just see a couple more people have jumped on the live, so big up and welcome. Yeah, the idea of being a superhero, right, or a superheroine, or as my elders say, a shero, right? I like that one, right? Being a shero, like, on one side, it's the qualities and the greatness and all of the amazing things that women do and have done since the beginning of time, and and then it sort of has a flip side that you're not human, and I think it feels even more potent at this point, where we are on a global scale discussing humanization, and the humanization of Black people, African people, people of color, and the humanization of Black women, because I think that as much as there's a celebratory aspect to the strength of it, there's also this flip side that means that maybe the support and the compassion and all of the other things that is deserved to us as human isn't there, because we're being viewed as superhuman. What do you guys think? I wasn't even where I was going, but it just came out.
So as a birth doula, birth worker, like in that scope of things, I just want to like touch on that, because that also trickles into the medical system in America and also in the UK, because I'm not sure about the history of gynecology in the UK, but specifically in America, like gynecology developed because they were doing experiments on slaves, on Black women. And the case was that their ideology was that we didn't feel pain, or that we didn't feel pain as strongly or as severely as our white counterparts, which obviously is completely untrue. But if we're almost seen as like not human or superhuman, then it's very easy for us to be used in that way. And even up until today, where what do I say? I'm forgetting the statistical term, but basically women who are dying either in childbirth or the year after childbirth is like skyrocketing high, where in a first world country you wouldn't think it would be like that. But it's because our issues, our pains, our ills are seldom taken seriously, because we're seen as stronger, or we're seen as like, our pain is just kind of swept under the rug, because we're just seen as so strong, which, like I said, it's like it's not a reality, but it trickles down to our livelihoods, this myth, right? So it's almost beyond just like, we don't get support, or we don't get, like what you said, we don't get that like acknowledgement of like, hey, you might need a break, or like you might need some help. It's like literally like life and death for us, this myth.
Is that dehumanizing, isn't it? Dehumanization from history. And I mean, I don't, the history will be similar in the UK, not maybe quite in the same way, because but yeah, it will be similar. And also for women, just generally, the medicalization of birth in the UK, and the control of all of that, and it being, seen as something you do in hospital, and all of that has been really driven by being in a patriarchal world, yeah. So
yeah, and that idea, because it's really interesting, because when the topic came about, and the topic came about because of conversations that I was having with women, some single women, some mothers, wives, all of these hats, all of these labels, and then like the wider picture started to come in of like, actually this idea of the superwoman, as Ebboni said, is literally has taken itself so far that it is life or death, you know, life or death culturally, and even like life or death when we look at our health, you know, and the cost of trying to do everything. You know what I mean? Like, and I want to flip it on its head slightly. Do you think that there are advantages to this superwoman myth? Like, do you think that there's any way where it positively serves us?
Well, I think in terms of, you know, I mean, it's this constant duality that there is in everything, isn't there? But the, you know, the empowering side is, you know, this, that you can do anything, you know, the narrative that we can be whatever we want to be as human beings, you know, can be empowering. However, I remember when I was a new mom, and a friend kind of rang me about this big business opportunity. She was like, and she said, well, you know, there's this lady and she's, you know, doing it while she's breastfeeding her child, and and the expectation was that you can just pop a baby out and you can be breastfeeding a child on one side and work and and do all the things, right? Run a business and all the rest of it. And yes, you can do that, and some people do that. But it felt like an expectation that I would be able to do that. And why can't I do that? Do you know what I mean? I felt this sort of pressure that I should be able to do it all. And actually what I needed to be doing right then was, you know, just having my new baby and having a baby moon and just taking my time and, you know, having support, not going, you should be up and doing and running a business and feeding and and so, yeah, I think that, you know, there's this strong expectation to be able to do it all. And that's not to say, you know, some people can't do that, because of course they can. You know, there are people who run businesses. This woman was clearly writing a book, running a business, feeding a baby, being, but that image, I think it doesn't allow for actually, and I think the narrative spreads between women as well, so that you end up not getting the support you need and not offering it maybe either. Because I remember, you know, feeling like a husk of myself, really. Like I was really I'm somebody who's really energetic, has always done a lot of stuff and what have you. But when I had my first child, who lived, because my first child was stillborn, so that's a whole nother story, that's a whole nother journey. So when I finally got my healthy baby, like my child didn't sleep for 2.5 years. So I was like really did not sleep. Like it was like she had a tilt monitor. If you try to put her down, she just woke up, you know. So she only kind of slept upright, and it was a nightmare. And so I was just massively sleep deprived. And I thought I had to do, I was a mum, so I should be able to do it all, right? I should be able to feed my baby, and, you know, look after my baby. So I did the nights on my own for the first 9 months, like completely on my own, pretty much. And then I just got to the point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore, because she didn't like, she's got she had health issues, so she had like severe eczema and what have you. So she just, it wasn't she didn't want to sleep, she could not physically sleep. She wasn't comfortable enough to actually sleep, because she was just irritated the whole time. So you know, all the stuff that people tell you to try and support you, it's like, well, none of it works if your child is unwell. You know what? And they just can't do the thing, like the sleeping, you know, the vital thing. then that's kind of it. But I felt this huge pressure to try and, you know, do the mothering on my own. And I was just like, so exhausted at trying to do that and be that. So you can imagine this woman going, oh yeah, you can feed your baby and you can do that. I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of feel like I'm surviving, right? But then I remember looking at other women and thinking, they've got it all together. They look like, and this is the thing, so it gets perpetuated, right? So when you look at someone else, you think, they look okay, they look all right. If you look closer, you can probably see it in the eyes, but you probably don't notice yourself, because, and also what I realized is they don't know me. So I had like met these ladies through my NCT group, right? So they haven't met me before. They didn't know what my eyes looked like before. They didn't know how much energy I had. It's like, this is me operating probably on a quarter of my energy. But for some people that would be quite energetic just because of my personality and how I am, right? But for me, I like, no, that's just like me on really, running on fumes here, And so
there's something really poignant there, because the whole idea of comparing ourselves to each other, which is like, and I'm not talking about just having a reference point of another person, but this way in which I feel like it's almost in the culture how we are raised to relate with other women and see them as maybe our competition and compare ourselves to in a kind of in a bit of a toxic way, and then looking at them, and either we're on the side of somebody should be doing this, that, and the other because I can, or I should be doing this, that, and the other because they, and all of these expectations, I feel, are pretty super expectations. I just want to big up Melanie, who's jumped on the live. Bless up. And yes, Leanne was like, sleep deprivation is the worst. Yeah. And I know, I'm sure you know, Ebboni.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Ebboni, what do you want to throw in the mix?
I was just going to say, I actually posted something on Instagram a few days ago, and it was like a movie clip, and it was a child, a young girl asking her mother, like, are you a superhero? And I think she was a Black Panther, but anyway, she's like, are you a superhero? And she's like, listen, I'm a Black woman in America, like superheroes ain't got nothing on me, and somebody actually came under my post and said, like, this is BS, like, why are you promoting this? You're like sending the wrong message to young Black girls. And I'm like, they didn't read my caption. My caption was very like empowering and stuff like that. So in terms of that ideology or that archetype being empowering, it can be, but I feel like it's a very delicate nuance, because it's really only empowering for like a minute. And then it's like, but I need help. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're expected to do all of the things, people are less likely to offer help. People are less likely to be like, oh, can I like hold a bag for you? Can I like, help you in any type of way, right? Because they think in their head also too, from the outside looking in, that you have it all together. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of the times it's like what you said, it's like you're running on like a quarter of your reserve. You're running on very little of your like operating system if you look at the whole thing. But like, imagine how it would look if we were running on 100%, even like 85%, right? If we had the support, because we also have to remember that like back in the days, especially for like African people, we grew children in villages. Like we had like all the aunties, all the sisters and cousins and friends who filled gaps where there were gaps. You know what I mean? It's just in recent history where we're meant to kind of do it all alone. We're meant to kind of be an island, when that is not really the natural order or even the sensible or logical way of doing things, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, how can you expect a person who just had a baby to run a business and write a book and do all of that? And like, yeah, you might be able to do it, but it's like, if you're doing it and you're only operating on 25% of what your actual output is, then is that really good? And is it really good that like, okay, yeah, you think I'm strong, but it's almost to my detriment because you think I'm strong, so you don't want to help me. Whereas if you thought maybe I was weaker or you thought I was timid, then you would say, okay, like maybe I should help her, you know? And it also makes us less likely to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times as women, actually, I just posted this yesterday. It was like, what is hardest for you to hardest for you to say? And the first one was, I love you. The second one was I need help. And the third one was like, I apologize. And everybody said B. And even my answer was B, because the hardest thing for me to do is ask for help. And this is, as a mother of four, knowing that I need help, it's very difficult, you know? So.
Well, this is interesting what you're saying, because it's like the internalization of what we were speaking about in the beginning, you know. So you growing up with this idea that we just do, like, either you do everything or you're failing. Do you know what I mean? Like the idea of like being a bad mother or a bad woman, someone who hasn't got it together. And so nobody wants to sit in that like archetype. So the other way round is doing everything, but as you were saying, like at what cost? Because the examples that we have, I don't feel like some of the examples, I don't think they're the norm, and I think they're extraordinary. I think we've had to do, like, we will survive, right? So it's like, if there's things that aren't in place, then we'll get it done, you know. But what is the cost of that? Is that manifesting 5 years later? Do you know what I mean? Is that at a detriment to our mental health? You know, like all of these aspects. And Ebboni, you touched on something about like, which I totally agree with, right? Sounds cliched, but it takes a village to raise a child. But I think it really does, because we're in this time of this 2.4, you know, 2.4 children, wherever that came from, you know, and it's just you, potentially your partner and your children. But like, that is not enough for anyone, because we weren't designed in that way. And I wanted to ask Sarah, because obviously I know the work that you do, and Sarah, please like elaborate on the work that you do, but how, when you're working with parents, how does that idea of the village translate into the 2.4 construct that we currently find ourselves in?
Well, you know, obviously we've had this whole, you know, this construct of people parenting in isolation before we had a global pandemic, right, where it really pushed that sense of isolation. So people really have been separated, like those who did have family nearby or have some support were cut off from it, you know. So that's been really, really challenging. And, you know, I used to run so for people who don't know what I do, so I support parents who want to parent in a respectful way, to learn those skills, because we're not born with them, we do have to learn them. And be able to parent in, you know, from a place of respect, but also away from this kind of punishment model and rewards and things like that. So respectful parenting approaches, really. And I think this has come into the fore really during this, you know, more with us being more isolated as well, to really needing to know how to, you know, de-escalate the emotions and deal with all the emotions of this, of work, you know, living through the change. But I suppose in the way that I've had to support people, it's changed from being in person to being online. And I think it's been helpful in some ways to have that, you know, because people who were isolated and weren't getting the support, it's been a bit more readily available. But you've got to be willing to ask. You've got to be willing and open to connect with it in the first place. And I think there's a lot of like, you know, people who come into my world in terms of the parenting work that I do, some people will sort of think, well, I'm not in crisis, or my child, you know, I'm not in crisis yet, so I'll ask for help when it's so bad that I've got to get some help, right? So sometimes people view it in that way, that it's for, you know, the work that I do is for when things have gone really bad, but it's not at all. It's like it's a way of life. It's for you know, helping you parent in the way you want to parent, you know, and helping you break free from these old patterns as well, you know, and heal some of the past. Because a lot of us, I know I wasn't, you know, parented in the way that I parent, right? So you know, it's breaking these patterns, these patterns that have gone before. Part of my work and part of my legacy, I believe, is, and for my family for sure, is to break these patterns and support other people to do the same. But I think, you know, this whole theme of asking for help, it's like, you know, doing that just because you want to be the best parent you can be, or, you know, you want to parent in alignment with your soul and not rely on, you know, these outdated modalities that are just is what we're, you know, bought into. So yeah, so it's about that really. So that's kind of the work that I'm doing in terms of the parenting. Yeah.
Asking and that idea as well of thinking, it's almost like help, requiring help is a weakness.
But also feelings, like the foundation of what I do is about accepting and acknowledging our feelings, you know, as parents, but also of our children. And just that foundational piece is massively challenging for people, because that's seen as a weakness as well. Feelings are seen as a weakness.
Which
right?
Which is really interesting, because I feel like part of that that idea of the superwoman and doing everything, etc., has actually negated a lot of the feminine gifts, which are the intuition, and which is actually seeing and recognizing the wisdom in being able to feel, and all the things feeling teaches you, and all of the things that that feelings connect you with. And I say it's feminine as opposed to being female, because I feel like this is something that exists in men and women.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna, I missed a couple comments. Sorry, but I'm back. Okay, so Leanne read that I read recently that the archetype of the strong Black woman started as admiration for what Black women in history have endured and still endure, but it's become a trap and been subverted into an excuse to continue to dehumanize Black women because of this strength. And then Melanie says the nuclear family 2.4 construct, and yes, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah. And you know, the thing, and you know, I see it with the parents I work with and myself, and every, you know, all of our society, really, this foundational part of accepting all feelings, right? Like all the, like that we're not just this narrow field of what we, you know, what we think is okay or we think is allowable. It's like all the feelings, like the behavior, right? We're managing different types of behavior, and but the foundation of that is expressing the feelings and allowing them to move through instead of pushing them down. So allowing them to come out and move through and be expressed.
Well, this is like, you know, when you said about, because I think it was you that was mentioning the patriarchal system, and it's like, it's also our value system, right?
Yeah.
So if we're in a particular construct that doesn't really value women, or at least based upon not valuing women in that way, then the women are the custodians, the chief custodians of the feminine, then attributes that do belong more to the feminine will culturally be dishonored, and then that's like our feelings and the power of looking inside, right? The power of acknowledging what's going on inside and saying, okay, that's okay, this has got something for us. All of that is by default negated by that culture, you know? And it's like, and that's why I feel like we're being called into a cultural and paradigm shift, where we're not viewing being in survival as being like the norm and being a virtue, because I think, as Leanne said, yes, Black women through history, you know, the first woman on the planet, yes, we know this, and through history we continue to do what we have to do, but why are we still in survival?
It's that disconnection from abundance being our birthright, from everybody's birthright, you know.
The idea of that being the norm and being normalized. So when you were speaking about, you know, that person who, you know, just had a baby and wrote 3 books and all the rest of it, it's like, yeah, it's possible. It's not the norm.
It's not the norm, yeah. And you know what abundance looks like when you've just had a baby, you know, the thing that is amazing about that time is being able to have the luxury of spending time with that new life, you know, and really enjoying, like, that first year, you know, is that time to be with that baby. I mean, that's one of the things, you know, I do like that we have. I know in some other countries, the maternity leave isn't like a year, like maybe 3 months or something. And I'm like, what? You know, I think having a year, you know, to really spend time with that, bringing that new person into the family is so important and so needed. And it needs that space. You know, I think each child needs that space, and as mothers, we need that time to be with them, and not trying to necessarily run a business, all the rest of it, unless you want to, but like not having to, right?
Not have that be the expectation of the norm. So I'm just realizing we've got a couple more comments. I'm on it. Okay. So let's magnify when we don't acknowledge or express all of the feelings. The superwoman image denies you of those feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just read the most amazing book about ending the stress cycle. It's called Burnout. That's covered this in the most fascinating way. Yeah, do pop the book again in the comments and who it's by as well, because like if people want to check that out.
Can I touch on something?
Yeah, please.
Just that I think you were like, to answer your question, you were saying like, why are we still in survival mode? And I think a short answer to that question is just because like it's literally like ingrained in us, like in our like DNA, like literally, because having to go through all of these things that we went through like historically and still like show up for life naturally has made us a bit stronger, has made our skin a little bit thicker, you know, like even like thinking about how a lot of Black families are single parent households, right? I grew up with a single mother, 4 children, and my mom did everything. Like my mom did everything. And even now, like, okay, now I'm raising 4 children with my husband, who also grew up with a single mother who did everything. Like, I mean, you go to work, you sometimes have 2 jobs and you're just hustling, and then you have to come home and clean the house and deal with the children and all of the things. It was almost inconvenient to express the feelings. Not only even express the feelings, but even sit with yourself and say, okay, like, this is how I feel. Like, this is hurtful. Like, I'm sad about this. This person at my job did this to me and this is how it made me feel. Like, it was like an inconvenience, you know what I mean? And then if you think about it back in like slavery days, like on the plantation, there was like no room to have an off day. You were there to work. You're not hurt. It's okay. Get back to work. Okay, you had a baby. Okay, get back to work. You know what I mean? And those are deeply ingrained with us. Even like, okay, myself, like I'm trying to, like Sarah said, to break the cycles, like in my own parenting, in my own life, and the way that I do things. But it still comes up. Like it's a constant, almost challenge within myself. Like, why do you need to do that? Like, why can't you rest? Why can't you take a nap if you're tired? Like, why do you need to do all of the things? And I think it's important for us to give ourselves grace and ease, because these ideas and these ways of being did not come about in a day or one generation. It came from generation and generation and generation and generation. My great grandmother, who, God rest her soul, was like my person. She raised 18 children in rural Nova Scotia. I don't know if you guys know, but like Nova Scotia has like a big Black population of like immigrants, and she raised her 18 children. She had her children at home. She didn't have lights, she didn't have electricity, and like she did that. Like my older cousin, who was one of the children that, like, you know, got thrown in and was taken care of, said she doesn't even remember seeing my granny ever sleeping. She's like, she was the last person to go to sleep at night, and early in the morning I woke up to bread being made because she was in the kitchen making all of the things, right? So I think it's important for us who are conscious of the necessity of breaking these cycles to be on it. Like, it's not just a thing where it's like, okay, I have an idea, I need to do it. It's like a constant challenging of our ideologies and why this and why that. And we definitely have to stay on top of it. And like I said, give ourselves grace, because we're doing our best with, like you said, like almost no examples, you know?
Yeah. And
that self-compassion, isn't it? You know?
100%.
And what you were saying as well, like there's a lady called Joy DeGroy, and she talks a lot about transgenerational trauma and things that are passed down, and specifically in relation to the African Holocaust slave legacy, right? But it's this idea that you've like, there's an old trauma of it not feeling safe, you know, like literally not feeling safe to stop. And that safety and stopping is a life or death situation. And so, you know, and I can speak for myself in saying that that wasn't just something that was activated once I physically became a mother. This was, you know, when I was a single person, filling up your time, filling up your time so that you don't stop, so that you don't have to look. And I feel like with the stuff that Sarah was talking about in this particular time of the pandemic, whatever the situation, we kind of had to stop. Stop. And it felt, and I think that's why for many people it was really intense, or is really intense. And because we have to look and go, okay, well, what is going on here? Why do I feel like I need to do this all on my own? Why do I need to fill up my time? And that idea or feeling that, like, literally if you stop, you might not get back up. You know? That keeping on going is keeping you going. You know? And actually realizing that it's that healing is important. You know, that healing, and as you were saying, Ebboni, that allowing that grace and ease, because we do deserve that grace and ease, and it's not a weakness, and it is our birthright. And yes, we've had to survive some very, very horrendous times, but we also have an opportunity to heal. And the journey's not over. We know what's going on in the world, you know, but give thanks that there are things that have shifted and is allowing for us to have that space to address these things, so that they're not triggers for the next generation. So that the next generation, when they're having their, I don't know, they're, you know what they like, their intergalactic Friday Night Live, it might even be called Friday, Serious Day or something, you know, right? And when they're doing this, this is not what they're talking about.
Yes.
Actually, they're referencing us and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that that generation did this work. So now we are levitating and teleporting or whatever. Whatever it is that they're going to be, whatever it is that they're going to be doing. So yeah, I know time is ticking on, and I know we could like go, really go to other layers of this, but we will continue the conversation like in the groups. If you're watching this on the replay, please add your comments. If you've got more to say and you are watching this live, then please do plug into the conversation, because I feel like this is an ongoing one, you know, and it's interesting inviting you guys into this conversation when there are aspects of looking at the two of you that I view as being quite superhero-like, you know, and meaning that in its most celebratory way, but maybe looking at that, you know, like being able to look at someone and go, oh my gosh, wow, you're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Would you like some help? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would you like me to hold one of those balls for you? You know, it's like, and that's what I feel like it's which is in the work in which both of you are doing, which all of us are doing, is about expanding our paradigm. And saying, okay, there is another way of doing this. And as you were saying, Sarah, you know, asking for reaching out and saying we don't have to be an emergency.
And there's a big part of this that comes down to, you know, the work that we have to do around self-love, actually. And that's, you know, what I see with, you know, I often say in my work that mums are the glue that hold families together. But, you know, and I was thinking about this the other day, because the majority of the women, the mums that I work with, that's the situation. They're doing all the things and they are the ones holding everything together. But then there's this pressure to always be that. And, you know, and there's a couple of things, you know, being able to like actually let go and trust that the glue is still going to stick.
Yes.
Right? That they, you know, and that's the kind of autonomy part as well, of allowing our kids to have some of that autonomy and trusting them, but also that other people can pick up the pieces, you know, that your partner can get involved, you know, and it can be tricky, you know, when we're the one that's been doing and keeping it all together to actually, and, you know, I meet so many women at different stages that get to that point where I just can't keep doing that anymore. So they've got to make some changes. But then there's a whole process of releasing the reins as well, and the control of being the one who does all the things, right? You know, who does all the things and doing it your way, you know, part of doing it, all the things, you actually get to do it your way as well. Yeah. And it's hard when they don't do it as well as you do it, right? And also, like, whether it's the kids or the partner, you know, but letting go and just allowing things, they'll be done in the way that they're done, and that's okay, you know, and giving ourselves the time. You know, I always do some emphasis in my group every week on self-care, on that self-love, on that, you know, filling up our tanks, filling up and coming from this kind of resource space instead of survival place, you know, that you were talking about, oneness, you know, because it's only when we fill ourselves up that we can do that, you know.
And allowing and going, it's okay if things aren't quote unquote perfect.
Yeah, it's like it can be messy, it doesn't matter.
Wherever, because I think that in the internalization of the superwoman myth, then there's this idea of this expectation and this perfection that is required. And so part of the letting yourself be supported is also like releasing the judgment of, how it should be done and the level and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that we don't have standards, but like trusting the same amazing universe and mystical coordination that brought us into being, and that's given us all of the wisdom and us all of the skill set and us all of the strength and all of this thing, trusting it to work in our life and for us in having and experiencing more grace and ease and abundance and flow in our experience.
And that takes surrender. You know, it takes some surrender. And there is that point, you know, during birth where you've got to surrender to the power of what's moving through you, that whole birthing process. You know, needing to kind of surrender to that and trust that our bodies will do their thing. You know, I'm sure, Ebboni, that's what you support women to do, right?
Yeah. You know, all about that level of
for sure,
personally and with your
I was gonna say it also comes down to yes, surrender for sure, and also reminding ourselves that, like, I think ultimately, like, we could say that across the board, like as mothers, raising these beings in the world, like, we just want them to like grow and be happy and, you know, be responsible and understand themselves and all of those things. And we have to ask ourselves, like, when they're 20, 30, 40-year-old adults, are they going to remember, okay, like, my mom spent time with me, my mom talked to me, my mom, you know, did things with me, or like, my mom drove me crazy because the house wasn't clean, or like, wow, like, my house was clean all the time. Like, they're probably not going to remember that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? They're going to remember, like, you know, my mom took good care of herself and she was happy because she took good care of herself, and, you know, like, learned boundaries and stuff like that. So we almost have to prioritize what we put, like, all of our efforting into, you know what I mean? Because the perfection is like another one of those myths, right? Like, nothing's going to be perfect all of the time, you know what I mean? And it's just never going to be like that. So we need to stop driving ourselves insane trying to like hold ourselves to this impossible standard, you know what I mean? Like, ultimately, like, you know, happy, like, if everyone's happy, like, if mom's happy, everyone's happy. If children happy, mom's happy, you know, like,
happy
right? Right. That's the one.
Happy women,
happy women, happy world.
Happy women, happy world. Love it.
Yes. So yeah, that's the new hashtag. Hashtag everybody. Happy women, happy world.
Yes, I'm loving that.
Speaking with you guys, can you just, if people want to find out more about your world and what you're doing, can you share your social media handles? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. So Ebboni X, EBBONIX on Instagram. Not so much on Facebook right now, but yeah, I share a lot of my parenting journey and my self-growth journey. I do a lot of education on like doula and birth and Black women health. And yeah, you can reach me there, DM me, anything like that.
Great. Yeah, and you can, I'm on Facebook quite a lot. So I'm Sarah Parks on Facebook, and I also have a page and a group called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK. So you can look me up there, and I do regular kind of sessions and support series and things like that in there. I am on Instagram as well as How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK, but I am changing that. So I just like mention that in case you're watching this later on and you can't find it. It's because I've changed the name. But anyway.
And if that happens and she's changed the name and you can't find her, just hit me up and I will.
Yay!
So thank you so much. And this is all of the Friday Night Lives are from women who are inside the Purpose is Everything Facebook group. We actually beamed outside the group because Facebook changed something and it was the only way to beam in. But normally this takes place exclusively inside of the group. So anyone who's watching outside the group, you got a little extra treat there.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And bye-bye Facebook. Let me just see.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Oneness and ladies. Any more comments? It can be hard to ask for help and so hard to accept it when people offer. Definitely a control issue for me. Such a great point, Sarah. There we go. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for showing up, and I will see you all next week for Friday Night Live. Have a beautiful weekend.
Yay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.